officially turned around, guys. We are back, baby. We are back.
We're back.
Yeah.
Classic. We are back.
That's
we
right.
are back. We are getting Doug back.
And we're the three best friends that anybody could have. We're the three best friends that anyone could have. We're the three best friends that anyone can have. And we'll never, ever, 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 ever leave each other. We're the best three friends that anybody could have. I mean, the three best friends that anybody could have. That's right.
We are so back. The patch notes dropped last night, and my build was buffed. My league starter, the Elementalist Glacial Cascade build, has been massively buffed. I was hoping the build would survive patch notes, but instead it got a lot of love. I am now so hyped for league start. So let's jump in and talk about what changed and how this build got better. So Glacial Cascade did not get changed, but Elementalist got massively buffed. So the Liege of the Primordial Ascendancy skill now grants +2 to maximum number of summon golems, and summon golems are immune to elemental damage. As you see here, Elemancer used to give +1, and also the immunity. It also gave 25% increased effective buffs granted by your golems per summon golem, but that's going to be gone. So that's just going to be those two things pushed into Liege of the Primordial, which means you now are saving an ascendancy point. You're losing 100% buff effect, which sucks, but you get another ascendancy point. This is massive because another node, Shaper of Winter, also got buffed. Shaper of Winter now no longer gives most of its effects. It still gives all damage can chill, which is good for the build because we use Heat Shiver and fizzes extra fire. And it now causes enemies chilled by your hits to lessen their damage by half of chill effect. Chill effect cap, which this build is constantly at on all enemies in the game, means enemies deal 15% less damage. This is a massive damage boost to the build. And then on top of that, enemies chilled by your hits have damage taken increased by chill effect. This is going to be 30% at all times. This is effectively a 30% shock. The Shaper of Winter node is now phenomenal. And we basically get to take it for free because Elemancer got deleted and combined into Liege of the Primordial. There's another node on here. The Elemancer Ascendancy passive skill has been replaced with a new notable called Bringer of Ruin, which gives increased mana reservation efficiency of Heralds and 66% increased Herald skill buff effect. I don't think this is going to be worth taking on my version of the Elementalist, but this is really powerful, and I'm going to run the numbers on it. So a big nerf to this build that you might think was going to happen was the elemental mastery that inverts res has been reduced by 10%. However, we actually don't take that node. And the reason we don't take that node is because Elementalist wants you to reduce enemy res. Mastermind of Discord gives an extra 25 to the effective res, and we're going to be doing cold and fire exposure, which applies a massive amount of negative res. That basically makes this node not worth taking. See, it's only 4.4%. It's going to be even less after the patch. So no harm to the build there. So why Glacial Cascade? So what's so exciting about golems? Golems were already very strong. And what I called my build of the league last league was this build in the end game. Golems solve some of your defensive issues, and now some of them have been reworked, and we'll talk about that. But you can get a lot out of golems. So unfortunately, the Chaos Golem lost access to its physical mitigation. However, we are going to replace that with probably a Fizz taken as chest and then drop the Chaos Golem entirely. The Flame Golem now gives 29% damage at all levels, at level 20, up from 20%, and now gets 20% increased area of effect. These numbers can be effectively tripled with no investment for a couple of reasons. Liege of the Primordial gives 100% buff effect. You get another 80% buff effect from Golem Commander, this wheel here on the tree, and then the gem's quality gives another 20%. So that gets you to 200 additional percent effect. So basically every number that you see, you can triple. Now, keep in mind, I have already played this exact build. It has now just gotten significantly better. This is not some untested thing that I'm trying. These golems were amazing last league, and now all of them are basically getting their power doubled. The Lightning Golem is getting increased attack and cast speed. That's getting turned up to 10%. This is great for shield charge. It makes it really snappy, but you can also just use Frostblink of Wintry Blast. More importantly, this Golem is also now giving you 18 mana regen, which is over 50 flat. That's almost double a level 20 clarity. This build did use mana last league. We had to solve the problem in a couple of different ways, but it wasn't too difficult. Now, mana is entirely solved by the Lightning Golem. The Summon Stone Golem, which the build also uses, has been buffed to give you 20%, aka 60 at league start, increased defenses. That's energy shield, evasion, armor, and now incentivizes the use of potentially armor or evasion in the build, which we didn't have before. Something I also did not talk about was the value of 20% AoE at all levels. This is going to be effectively 60% AoE on league start, and it's actually going to be 60% AoE as soon as you get it. You can take Liege of the Primordial with your first Ascendancy node, kick on a Flame Golem, have Golem Commander on the tree, and you'll have 50-something% increased area of effect on top of all this increased damage. The reason this is so exciting for Glacial Cascade is that area of effect equals single target damage. So when you are casting Glacial Cascade, okay, so let's say this is you and the enemies are out here. So Glacial Cascade casts overlapping circles out in front of you. Now, the first 3 are all the same size. And you guys get to see my paint skills. And then the final burst has a ridiculous amount more AoE. And the more AoE you get, the larger this gets. And the larger these smaller ones get as well. So if an enemy's in this area here, they're going to get 3 overlaps. If it's here, they're going to get 2. Now, this is a very rough sketch. This is not actually what it looks like. But as you can see, AoE does increase overlaps, and it is possible to get 4. With an extra 60 to 100% from the Flame Golem, it's going to be a lot easier to get to 3 and even easier to get to 4. Yet another buff to the build is Spell Echo losing some of its cost, going from 150 to 140, and losing its 10% less damage modifier. That's just 10% more damage for the build. Now Arcane Surge is going to give 20% increased cast speed, previously 10, which is another massive boost to the build. The Arcane Surge buff is great for casters and was seriously needed. I have a super rough POB available right now that I'm going to link, but don't put too much thought into it. What I basically did was, this is from last week. It's basically just 3 mod and single crafted items in every slot. Now, some of these are going to change. I just threw something together that I knew would kind of work and would have all your resistances and everything. But 3 mod items, nothing too crazy. Basically just looking at res on most gear and life, and then +1 on the amulet, +1 on each wand with some cast speed and some spell damage. We are going to be using a Heat Shiver. This is going to enable Trinity on the build because we're always chilling max and we're always freezing. And we also have Fizz as extra from Herald of Ash. In practice, this means full uptime of Trinity. This is not some Heat Shiver Trinity bait. This actually works with Herald of Ash. It's super nice. Cloak of Flame is probably going to be the chest of choice because we don't really have any physical mitigation outside of this, but I'm going to do some more math on this. Obviously, a Cloak of Flame with +2 is going to be massive damage, but this doesn't include any of that stuff. We do have 1 cluster in here. The most important thing is Doriani's Lesson. I would ideally like to get the Leech on gloves, but then you have to get your fire exposure somewhere else. So that's something I need to figure out, because what I want to do is I want to use Primordial Bond. Primordial Bond, I had 1 of these in the build last league, and ideally I would like to have 2 given all the buffs to the golems. So the problem with Primordial Bond is it's not super easy to craft, and they can get pretty expensive if minions are popular, and I imagine golems are going to be. But what it gives you is golems have increased max life, which is great to help keep them alive. They're very tanky already, and 2 of these is going to be phenomenal. They give you 10% increased damage per summon golem, so 40% damage, which is great, but then 40% increased effects of buffs given by your golems. 2 of these is another 80%. That's almost now, instead of tripling, you can now almost quadruple the numbers on every golem. So I'm probably going to be working in 2 of these into the endgame version of the build. But basically what it has now is just a way to get Doriani's Lesson. And then I threw in some medium clusters here. These are super easy to craft. Before I make the full build guide, I will show it. It's basically just harvest reforged life on like 54 plus item level medium clusters for area, and you're going to hit Towering Threat and a bunch of other stuff all the time. So Vast Power, Assert Dominance. Again, this is maybe not the most efficient way to do this, but this gives you a bunch of AoE that I'm not 100% certain I'm going to need now. So I might just switch these into more damage, which is going to make this number even higher. But the reality is this 6.3 million damage, if you just entirely unspec this cluster, it really doesn't drop that much. And now we have, you know, a level 75 tree. You can take off the Heat Shiver. You can take off the Trinity. So we're now operating on a 5-link with a level 75 tree, no uniques, and we're doing over 2 million damage. Now that is just in the final burst. The initial bursts are going to be about 1/4 to 1/3 of your total damage for final burst. So you can guarantee at least 1 overlap of the initial burst. So now we're looking at 3 million damage here minimum. Again, this is not a perfect tree. This is made before the patch notes. I made a couple of edits to it. It's not perfect, but it is great. but I can assure you this is going to be fun to play. I'm super, super excited. One more thing, the Righteous Fire of Arcane Devotion is getting a 25% more cast speed buff. So Righteous Fire of Arcane Devotion, how does it work? 70% of your maximum mana is dealt to you as base fire damage, which is significantly lower than if you were playing a Righteous Fire build. You're probably going to have 4, 5, 6,000 life minimum on a Righteous Fire build, so the burn is significantly higher. But our mana pool is only at about 1,000, which means the burn of Righteous Fire is actually pretty low. On a build that already gets a little bit of regen here, and this is without even using Vitality or anything like that, basically just from the Stone Golem, we're able to sustain this Righteous Fire and get that 25% more move speed. So I included all of the things in the custom modifiers that are getting added. Again, this is very rough. Please don't hold me to any of this. But roughly getting increased defenses, increased damage, increased AoE, mana regen, attack and cast speed. The Arcane Surge buff is in here. The Shaper of Winter buffs are in here. The Spell Echo buff, the Righteous Fire of Arcane Devotion buff, all that stuff is in here. And again, this is going to be a 5-link with no uniques, not even wearing a helmet or body armor. So obviously this can be much stronger. But I have to get back to working on this. So thank you for watching. I'm going to spend the week testing and really digging my nails into this. I am going to test Winter Orb in this setup. I love Winter Orb. A lot of you guys know that I've been wanting to make it a true good build, not just one that is serviceable for mapping. And I don't know that the buffs are enough, so I think it might be bait, but I will put a POB together at some point for that as well. So make sure you stop by my stream, twitch.tv/AER0__. I'm live every single day, and I will be right after this video. So thank you for watching. And as always, take care.